World Rally Championship is one of rallying's all-time classic events. First held in 1953, it's the longest, toughest and fastest of all the 9 rallies which make up the championship. I'm of course referring to the Safari Rally, held in Kenya over the Easter weekend on Africa's east coast and based in the capital city Nairobi. The first leg of the rally would consist of 5 competitive sections covering around 530 kilometres. First on the road and the early leader after the first section was the reigning world champion Colin McRae. The Scotsman doesn't have much experience in Kenya. The last time he did the safari was in a little Subaru Vivio in 1992, when he retired on the first day. He'd be hoping for a much better performance this year. Second place on the first round of this year's championship in Sweden was a superb result for the Ford team's new signing, Carlos Sainz. Like Subaru, Ford hadn't much recent experience in Kenya and had tested the car extensively in the weeks leading up to the rally. The Swedish rally winner was Tommy Mäkinen in a Mitsubishi Lancer. On the first morning in Kenya, Mäkinen was charging. After the first section, he'd be in third place, less than a minute behind McRae. The second of the 3-car Subaru team was driven by Sweden's Kenneth Eriksson. After 250 kilometres, he was just 23 seconds behind McRae. The Toyota team was represented on the Safari by Ian Duncan, who won the rally 2 years ago. In the absence of Juha Kankkunen, the team would count on the experience of the local driver. Heavy rain in the weeks leading up to the rally left the drivers facing conditions which resembled the RAC rally rather than the normally dry and dusty safari. Despite the huge distances involved in Kenya, Carlos Sainz must have wanted a much larger gap between himself and Kenneth Eriksson. Even though the cars started this section 3 minutes apart, Eriksson was catching Sainz after the Spaniard had been forced to stop with a broken drive shaft. With McRae dropping to third place after similar problems, it was Eriksson who led the rally on the afternoon of day 1. With the 5th and final of the day's competitive sections looking more like a river than a rally stage, the decision was taken to cancel that section and the cars could return to Nairobi.
Kenneth, they've cancelled the last section of the day, which seems to leave you in the lead.
It looks like that in the moment, yeah.
How's the day been for you? Has it been as tough as we thought it would be?
No, the last one was a bit tough because a lot of rain as well. But no, I have been quite gently today and absolutely no problem at all. The car and the tyres as well have been very good.
Day 2, the longest day, began at 5 in the morning, and the cars would cover over 700 kilometres northwest of Nairobi, around Nakuru and Eldoret, before briefly visiting the Great Rift Valley on their way back to the capital. Third-placed Colin McRae had a disastrous start to the second day. Ahead of him, the lead had already changed hands when a puncture cost Eriksson a couple of minutes and allowed Mäkinen to move ahead of him. McRae's woes, though, were all suspension-related. A faulty intercom meant that he missed a caution from his navigator, Derek Ringer, and had to call on the Subaru helicopter to fix the first of 3 suspension dampers, which he'd break on that section. By the time the cars reached the next service area, McRae was philosophical about his problems.
An eventful morning. What's happened?
Yeah, we bent 3 dampers. We changed 2 in the stage and had to drive with 1 bent to the end.
And how much time has that delayed you by?
About, I think, 40 minutes from Tommy on the stage.
end of the second leg also saw the first retirement among the championship contenders. Suspension failure on Carlos Sainz's Ford Escort had meant that he'd had to drive slowly through the afternoon sections. That had led to the engine overheating, and a dejected Sainz knew that his Safari Rally was over. In all, the rally lead had changed 3 times during the day. As the cars headed back to Nairobi, it was the Mitsubishi of Mäkinen which led from Ericsson's Subaru. And so to the third and final leg. More overnight rain, though, had led to the cancellation of the first 2 of the day's sections south of Nairobi, so it was left to the final 3 to decide the rally. The organisers of each round of the World Rally Championship produced their own trophies for not only the outright winners, but for each class too. In Kenya, artist Dennis Matthews creates the dozens of bronze statuettes which will be presented to the drivers, navigators and teams at the finish. Hours of work go into producing works of art which would grace any trophy cabinet. This buffalo will eventually go to the winner of one of the 10 different classes. Tommy Mäkinen knew that the winner's trophy was almost his. The last time the Safari had been won by a driver at the first attempt was in 1985, when another Finn, Juha Kankkunen, was the winner. Would Tommy's luck hold? The Subaru of Ericsson wasn't far behind, but luck was definitely not on his side. A puncture on the first section cost over 11 minutes, and Kenneth was left hoping that the Mitsubishi would have similar problems. Ian Duncan's steady run was continuing. He was holding on to a comfortable 3rd place, although he could have done without this mobile roadblock. Imagine chicanes like this in Formula One. Even though he was nearly an hour behind his teammate Ericsson, Colin McRae in 4th place wasn't letting up. A top 3 place would have been just reward for the way Piero Liati'd driven, but like the good team player that he is, the Italian was content to settle for 5th. Kenjiro Shinozuka too was playing his part as number 2 to Mäkinen. He was in 6th place at lunchtime on the final day. After Sainz's retirement, the hopes of the Ford team were resting on the shoulders of the veteran Swede Stig Blomqvist, whose Escort was 7th. 1996 marked the 25th anniversary of Stig's first Safari, proving that rallying isn't necessarily a young man's sport. Leading the showroom class, Group N, and in 8th position overall was the Subaru of Hideaki Miyoshi. Not only is the Safari unique in running on open roads, but the event still has passage controls in the middle of stages. This is McRae arriving at one on the final afternoon. After this, marshalling in Dovey in the early hours will never seem the same again. By the time the cars reached the very last competitive section, time had just about run out for any late changes to the leaderboard. Ian Duncan rewarded the Toyota team's faith in him by finishing in a well-deserved 3rd place after an almost incident-free rally. Suspension troubles on the second day were the only hiccup. Kenneth Ericsson must have been wondering where all his good luck had gone. A series of punctures and broken drive shafts had cost him victory on the Safari Rally. His 5th place on round 1 of the championship in Sweden had seen him slowly come to terms with his new car, the Impreza, and his new team, Subaru. Here in Kenya, he'd driven superbly, but victory wasn't to be his. That didn't stop him trying, though. Just look at the state his brakes are in at the very last service halt. That left the Mitsubishi Lancer of Tommy Mäkinen to take a deserved victory, his 2nd in as many rallies. His win in Sweden had been widely predicted, but to win the longest and toughest rally in the World Championship takes a special kind of driver. His performance in Kenya had impressed just about everyone. Mitsubishi naturally were delighted. A 100% record on the championship is no mean achievement. When one victory comes on snow and the other is won on a mixture of dust, rocks and deep mud, that's the mark of a world champion in the making.
Thanks.
At the very last service halt before the finish, there were handshakes and congratulations all round for a popular winning team.
From the snow and ice of Sweden to the heat and the dust and the mud of Nairobi, how do you do it?
I have to say we were wrecking quite well and quite a lot, and we did a lot of test kilometers and everything. It was we were working very long time here, and I think it's main reason why we get so good result.
To confirm the final positions, Tommy Mäkinen won by a little over 14 minutes from Kenneth Eriksson, with Ian Duncan third, Colin McRae fourth and Piero Liatti fifth. Group N was won by Hideaki Miyoshi. That victory means that Mäkinen, with 2 wins on as many rallies, has now extended his points total to 40. He leads the Drivers' World Championship from Kenneth Eriksson on 23 points and his teammate McRae with 22. Carlos Sainz is in 4th place with 15 points from his 2nd place in Sweden, and Ian Duncan is now 5th with 12. In the Manufacturers Series, Mitsubishi still have a 4-point lead over Subaru, with Ford in 3rd place on 53 points. This is becoming something of a habit for Mäkinen and his navigator Seppo Haryana, but will they make it a hat-trick on the next round of the championship, the Rally Indonesia? We'll have a report in 5 weeks' time. In Top Gear